Don't you enjoy the outdoors?
Yeah, but I want to see animals. Why don't we see any animals out here? I want to see a deer.
Well, perhaps try and be a little quieter and you might succeed at doing that. Animals are frightened by noise.
Hey, doesn't this look familiar? That creek and that old bridge, I think we've seen that before.
Yeah, it's all looking familiar. I think we've been through here already. Pretty sure we're lost. It's getting dark. There's a storm moving in. Probably gonna have to hunker down for the night. Just relax. We'll get through this. We'll make it through the night. Let's go through our day packs and see what we got. Okay, so let's go through what gear we have. I'll go through first. Go over like the key things we've got. So I got water, more liquids, striker, flashlight, pocket knife, and in this main pocket here we've got rain gear, jacket and pants, spare jacket, more water, some toilet paper, never known you might need that, some snacks, and then I've also got first aid kit, contractor trash bag, some rope, and a tarp. So what do you got?
I got poncho in case it rains. I got some water, a little bit of it. And I got Skittles.
That's all you have? Who taught you how to pack for a hike? Looks like we've got maybe an hour before it gets dark and the storm gets here. As it gets night, the temperature is going to drop. We're also going to have some rain and maybe some snow. The wind's also probably going to pick up a bit.
We're gonna die!
Calm down. We have what we need. We'll get through the night.
How can you be calm? We're lost. We're gonna die!
It is God who arms me with strength and keeps my way secure. We have what we need to get through the night, and we have God on our side. We're going to need to set up a shelter to protect us from the rain and wind during the night. First, we're going to have to find a location that has brush and vegetation around that will help protect us from the wind, and we need a spot that won't collect rain.
What about this side here?
Yeah, if you want a tree to fall on you in the middle of the night. Okay, so this is the spot we'll make our emergency shelter. It's good because we're kind of higher in elevation and the slopes are kind of away from us, so the water will be draining out. The area right here is also relatively flat and clear of brush, so it won't be too hard to make the shelter and it won't be a hard laying on it. So there's going to be some rain and or snow tonight. The wind is also going to be coming from the west. We can tell that's west due to the sun. So we're going to want to have the emergency shelter sloped downward here so that the wind's not coming through it. We're going to need to clear out some of the twigs here so we have a place to lay. Okay, we're going to want to gather up a bunch of these leaves to essentially make a bed, which will provide us some padding and insulation from the ground.
All right.
This looks good. It's nice and thick. It's going to help protect us from the cold of the ground. We still might get some moisture from the leaves though, so we're going to want to make a ground cloth, which is going to be my trash bag and your poncho. We're going to cut the bag open, kind of make it into a cloth so we have more space. We're going to be making a lean-to / A-frame. I want you to put a stake in the ground and tie a 2/2 hitch to the tarp and a taut line to the stake and make it tight. I'm going to tie a bow line around this tree and a taut line around the tarp and make it tight. We put the rope on top of the other end to make a loop. We do a wrap inside the loop. Then we go out of the loop and do another wrap. Then from there, it's just a matter of pulling it tight. You make your loop, then you wrap around. The difference is, with the taut line, you wrap around again. Then on the taut line, you go over, make your loop, you go through, and you got your taut line. So it's all looking good. I'm just going to inspect our nuts real quick, though.
It's gonna be cold. There's bears out there. We're gonna die.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
Hope you enjoyed that little skit we created for you. We wanted to highlight a scenario that you may encounter in the real world and how to handle that situation, and have a little fun with it. In reality, things like this do happen. An injury, unexpected weather, you get lost. Having the equipment with you and the ability to set up a shelter to keep you dry and protect you from the elements is important. In this skit, we showed you a little bit about how to select a site for a location, how to use some of the elements around you in order to protect you and keep you warm. Now we're going to get into a little bit of types of tarps, what sizes you want to use, as well as some different configurations for how to set up a shelter and some of the pros and cons of those. The first thing I want to talk briefly about is what type of tarp that you have with you. As you can see here, I have 3 different sizes and different types of tarps that we have here. This large blue one here is a 9 by 12 foot tarp. These large blue tarps are inexpensive. You can get them at Walmart, local hardware store. They're cheap, they're relatively durable, but they're a little bit bulky and heavy, so it's a trade-off that you want to get with the gear that you're purchasing. The next one, which I'll show you as well, is another blue tarp. This one is a 7 by 6 foot tarp. Again, same type of material, works good for smaller number of people. Whereas the larger blue tarp will give you options to set up a fully enclosed shelter or to be able to have a shelter for multiple people. The blue tarp is really going to give you a shelter for one person, maybe 2 if you want to squeeze in there, but it starts limiting what you can do with the tarp as far as protecting. The third tarp I have here is a lightweight tarp. This is one actually made with as a backpacking material. It's one that compacts down to be really small, about the size of a soda can. It's light and compact, so I use it a lot for backpacking and for hammocking, as I have a tarp with me, but I can also use it for my emergency shelter. So it's lightweight, it's not as durable. Those types of tarps can be more expensive. Even the material themselves, when you make them, can be more expensive. It takes time to make them. But they do give you other options as far as being lightweight and having stuff that you want to set up. Though given the size of this tarp, this is something that really is one person, two's pushing the limits on what you can do with that tarp.
So the first shelter we're going to do today is the lean-to shelter. It's the first shelter, it's the most simple, and it's the most basic. It starts with a simple ridge line that you set up between 2 trees or 2 poles, and then you take the tarp connected to this down to the ground. It's very fast to set up, gives you some basic protection from the wind and from the rain and sun, really from only one direction. As you can see, there's 3 sides that are still open to this, so you get a lot of airflow and a lot of movement through this, which isn't going to help you much in the winter, but it will help you a lot in the spring or for something that's very quick and easy to set up. All right, so what we have here is your basic A-frame tarp setup. It's created by running a ridge line between two poles or two trees that you then drape the tarp over into the shape of an A-frame. Then you tie out each of the four corners to create the frame. Basic and easy tarp setup. This one I set up relatively low. Again, for cold weather and winter weather, you want to provide as much containment of warmth that you have in there so that you don't lose it. If it was summer and it was hotter, you could raise this up higher and still give yourself protection from the weather. Benefit of this tarp is it does give you protection on two sides, but you still have a lot of openings on both sides, so you need to be very careful on which direction you set it up so that the wind is coming into one of the sides of the tarp and not through the tarp, so you'll lose a lot of temperature there. One of the key things to think about when you do a setup like this is when you have a ridge line that runs underneath your tarp. If it rains, water will run down this rope here and will end up dripping at the lowest spot, which would typically be in the middle of your shelter. So what I've added here was a drip line, which is just another rope, girth hitched around my ridge line, slid directly underneath the tarp here. So as the water runs down this, it will hit my drip line and go down the drip line and not underneath my tarp and keep my ground dry underneath there. So this tarp here is a modification of the A-frame. So it still has the same design of the ridge line and the tie out to the two corners on the tarp. The main difference is that the tie out on one side is about a quarter of the way down the tarp. What that allows you to do is use the remaining quarter of the tarp to create a floor that you lay on. This is one of the benefits of having a larger tarp, is that you can use the tarp for not only your covering from above, but could also be used for your ground covering to protect you from the water on the ground as well. So the final one that we have here is called a Plow Point. It's a very basic tarp to set up. All you need is one pole or tree that you tie one corner of your tarp to, and you diagonally down to the other side here. So it's tied up there, and it's staked down at the three corners around there. So you can see it gives you a lot of protection from two sides, from wind and from rain, but relatively open from the side there. So it gives you a good perspective of, protection from the rain and what elements as well as size it's in there. But as you can see, the name comes around to being Plow Point because it looks like the point of a plow as you're coming through with your four stakes and tie outs on the point there. Very quick and simple tarp to set up and gives you good protection from the weather. Again, with this one, no ground protection, so you have to have separate protection from the ground. So here I've set up another tarp, another emergency shelter here using my small backpacking tarp, the one I use for my day pack. Again, it's great size for a single person. I could probably squeeze two in there if we're really close together. Works great for the size. But as you can see here, I set this up instead of using a tree. Not every time you're going to find a place that you're backpacking, you use a tree. I use my trekking pole, tied the ropes around the pole here, looping it around the handle, and then tied it out with stakes here, giving me my 1 point to lift on that Plow Point design. So we showed you a few shelters, a lot of different ways you can do emergency shelters. A lot of it depends on what gear you have with you and the weather you're setting up for. These are just a few different designs that you have. Main thing is to keep something over you, to keep you dry, as well as to help keep you warm and block the wind as you work in your shelter.
But as with all of your gear, the thing you have to keep in mind is practice and set up and carrying it with you. You have to carry your gear with you in your day pack when you go backpacking you're outdoors, because if it's not with you, it's not going to help you. Second is practice setting it up. We showed you with a couple different tarps. We showed you several different styles of setting up a shelter. But if you don't get out and actually do it, understand the gear that you have with you and understand how to set up and works for you, you're not going to be able to do that very quickly in an emergency or a situation where you have weather coming in.